Hello, everyone, and welcome. And thank you for taking the time out of your day for joining us for our Cancer Fund Evaluation Forum today, both here and on Zoom, and those of you that are joining live on Facebook. And I'm so excited to have you join us today for this community event. You know, if you haven't seen this face before or heard this voice before, I'm Ann Lowe, and I'm the host of the Lowdown on Cancer, and I'm the community manager for the Cancer Fund as well. Why are you here today? To us, your voice matters. We've created the Cancer Fund in such a way that we want your input to help the Cancer Fund make a decision about what innovations to support now and ongoing in the future. I mean, doesn't it really make sense to have those of us that have personally been impacted by cancer be the ones giving input on future innovations? And we at the Cancer Fund want your help in determining what's important to us. So today, you're going to meet the founder of the Cancer Fund. You're going to meet the CEO of the company with an innovation the Cancer Fund is considering. And you'll even have the chance to ask him some questions. And then we'll meet as a community to discuss and to get your feedback. Anthony, if you don't mind, share a little bit of your background and tell us why you started the Cancer Fund.
Sure. So that's a great question. You know, there's a number of reasons, but I think the core of it is that, you know, I watched my father suffering, not only physically, but mentally and emotionally. And it really, it's tough. I felt useless. I felt helpless. You know, I wanted to help him feel better. I wanted to feel better, right? And I guess kind of the family I come from, we're accustomed to doing things for other people, right? So you kind of show your love through action, and driving him to chemo appointments, while, you know, certainly a demonstration of, I guess, care and effort. It felt a little bit like, you know, playing violin on the deck of the Titanic, and it just didn't really feel like the contribution that I would have really liked to have made, you know. And most of all, I felt regret, and you know, there was regret probably on multiple levels, but during his treatment, and then certainly after his passing, which is perhaps a bigger story, I think, is in terms of what actually became the catalyst for the Cancer Fund.
Regret, that's kind of an interesting answer. What regret about what?
Well, I've been I guess this is the part about my background. I've been an entrepreneur and angel investor for about 20 years now. And in that, I guess, capacity, I've been introduced to a number of really early companies. If you're not familiar with what an angel investor is, these are usually the people that invest before anybody else does, right? Before venture capital, very early on. And about 5 years before my dad was first diagnosed with cancer, and about 10 years before he passed away, one of the earliest investment opportunities I looked at was actually introduced to me by a doctor friend of mine. And he had introduced me to another entrepreneur who was also a doctor and a researcher that had developed a novel therapy for cancer treatment. And I was really interested in supporting it and investing in it. And I literally spent weeks reviewing all the clinical data, looking at the intellectual property. I even met with some of the patients. And these were folks that had gone from stage 4 terminal cancer which was how they made it into the trial. And when I had met with them, they had been cancer-free for more than 7 years. I even met with some of their doctors as well. And if that sounds too good to be true, like that was that was my reaction to it at the time, especially being fairly early to early stage investing, angel investing at the time, is that it seemed too good to be true. And the short story is that I didn't invest, and that's that is really where the regret came in. You know, once my dad had been diagnosed, and as his disease progressed, you know, I couldn't help but wonder what would have happened had I made the investment. Would my dad actually have had at least one more option for therapy that might have been effective, more effective than the treatments he chose, or more effective in combination with the treatment that he had. You know, so certainly regret while he was progressing, while his disease was progressing, and then regret afterward. And then, you know, still wondering whether or not that would be, if I had done something nearly 20 years ago, would that actually be available now today to help friends or family members that at this moment are actually in hospital. You know? So that was really the catalyst for the Cancer Fund.
Are they all cancer therapies?
Not all of them, no. Some of them are, and I think that that's probably the most. Well, I know in talking to folks, that's I think the most immediate thing that everybody expects the Cancer Fund would be doing is supporting late stage cancer therapies. And that certainly is one category. In fact, we categorize it as therapies and management. But we also have two other categories that we look at, which we also think are very important, which are diagnostics and monitoring, and then preventions and enabling technologies. And not everyone fits neatly into one of those boxes. Some of them touch multiple categories. And today, rather than tell you all about this, one of the things that we wanted to do was actually share with the community members what like some of the companies actually from these categories that we're actually looking at. So AdvaNow is one of those from what we expect is primarily the preventions category. Looking in that regard to have an impact on outcomes long before anybody gets to some of the later stages and some of the later stage therapy options.
What is it that the Cancer Fund sees in AdvaNow?
Yeah, so this is interesting because not every company sets out to make an impact on cancer, right? And sometimes they're not even aware of their potential impact. And so sometimes we're looking at them and reaching out to them. And I think that in this case, this is something that over a series of conversations with James, we identified the potential impact here together, because it started with a theory that we've since been able to kind of quantify and validate with data, and it was simply this: our hypothesis in looking at AdvaNow as a preventative solution was the characterization of a problem around access to care, right? Which was knowing that the later that people are diagnosed, the higher the mortality rate is and the shorter their lifespans are, right? And that was the problem, right? And so what we've done is looked at a number of innovations that we thought could have an impact on potentially creating earlier diagnosis, basically reversing that cycle, right? Earlier diagnosis, lower mortality rate, longer lifespan, longer survival rate. And that's what I've seen in AdvaNow. It's what other members that of the community and the screening committees that we have seen in AdvaNow. And yeah, I'm hoping that we can get some feedback from the community on whether or not they see the same thing and see the same potential, and whether they feel like this is an important problem to solve. Yeah, just that it really does matter to us. There's a lot of different perspectives on this. Clearly, my perspective is not that of a patient, right? It's that of a family member. And sort of one family member with a certain set of life experiences, right? And I think the best decisions we can make are those decisions that we'll make as a community, right? With a broad range of perspectives. So everyone's voice really does matter, and I know many of us have grown up learning that if we don't have anything nice to say, we shouldn't say anything at all. But I'm going to invite you to provide really any honest and open feedback with us, and you can do that just by sticking around after James will drop off. After he presents to us, he'll drop off so that we can talk about him behind his back.
Excellent. I like talking about people behind their backs. As Anthony said, we're sharing with you an innovation that the Cancer Fund is considering to financially support. So right now, I'd like to introduce James Bates, CEO of AdvaNow, and he's going to share again some information about his innovation. And then what I like about this is we get to open it up for questions that you might have for James. So James, if you would be so kind, again, thank you for joining us today. How about you give us a little bit of your background and share about your innovation?
Sure. Thank you, Anne. I really appreciate the opportunity to be here with the Cancer Fund. AdvaNow Medical is a startup that's been around since about 2016. And before that, I actually ran a self-driving vehicle technology group. And it was about $1 billion business. And we actually sold technology to people like Tesla or Google or GM or Daimler or Toyota, pretty much everyone in the world. We were the largest vendor in the world. Well, we sold that business. And when I started looking at, the next thing in my life, what I was going to do, I was really looking at healthcare as an opportunity to help. And what I noticed is the same technologies that are used inside of self-driving vehicles can be brought into the healthcare space to add some tremendous value. That background is kind of what launched AdvaNow Medical in 2016 and has brought us here today. I do have a few slides. I'll kind of walk through at a very high level the impact that I believe AdvaNow can have on this, and really what our overall vision is for treating the whole patient. So everyone see the slide?
Yes.
Make sure that's working good. All right, excellent. The statement healthcare is broken, we hear all the time. And it's like the doctor seeing the patient with the arrow through their head, asking them what the problem is. Everybody kind of knows what the problem is. Healthcare spending is out of control expensive. It is just high. And when you're looking at the curve, even if you normalize that into 2018 dollars, that cost continues to skyrocket. And as it skyrockets, this leaves care out of the hands of many people who may need it. So this is one problem. But the other problem I want to talk about is what happens when you actually have a problem and you even have insurance. You go through this frustrating loop that actually drives more cost into our system, where you'll go to the internet, you'll research it, then you'll go to your primary care doctor. The primary care doctor is most likely going to send you to a specialist. The specialist is going to have an opinion, which you may or may not agree with, and you end up becoming the expert. You end up studying everything you can study, and you're thinking, wow, the same old thinking's giving you the same old results, and you end up going back to your primary care doctor in this eternal loop. Well, here's the problem with this. The patient should not have to be the expert. But in our current system, you are the expert, and every time you go through that loop, you're waiting up to 52 days to see your primary care physician. This burden is being borne by the patients. And the more and more time that we are burning going through the endless loop between primary care physicians, specialty physicians, and us becoming experts so we can gauge whether we believe that specialist or not, just adds to the delay in detection of very serious issues. As was mentioned by Anthony and Ann, detecting cancer early is everything. If we can get it in its early stages, there's a high probability that the patient can walk away with maybe even just a minor procedure. As you get to a stage 2, stage 3, then that's when you start seeing a high percentage of patient mortality. So, how can you actually solve this problem? What AdviNow Medical does is we focus on what we term as effective medicine. Our goal is to take the best of all available knowledge that's based off of peer-reviewed studies. They include nutrition, integrative medicine, of course, traditional medicine, but also mind and body, lifestyle, everything that's involved with this. The AI actually will go through, ask the patient these questions, and determine, based off of that patient's condition and their patient history, what is the best and most customized treatment plan for them. So we have a perfect treatment plan without the back and forth all in the beginning, where we can, through an information portal, engage with that patient to be able to guide them to the most effective care, essentially in real time. Now, that's all great to talk about at a very high level, but ultimately what it means is that the patients get to the right doctors the fastest. And ultimately, that is what's important. If you go through a standard traditional patient journey, the patient will start in AdviNow on a digital front door, that e-registration that we all have come to know and love over the past few months. And it is included with a smart check-in. That means it's a chatbot, if you will, and it will do a comprehensive interview with the patient. We then have an augmented reality platform that will actually be able to allow patients to take precision medical measurements in their home or in the doctor's office without the doctor actually having to touch the patient. This keeps everyone free from contagious disease, at the same time allows very quick and effective medicine to take place. As the AI is predicting the illness and giving the doctor a one-page summary about the patient and predicting the most effective treatment plan, that leaves the doctor in a position where they can have everything they need to choose the right customized treatment plan for that patient. This is the AdviNow system and the AdviNow vision. Customized, individual, effective treatment plan options available immediately.
I do have one question. What kind of competition do you have in this market?
So I would say that there are no companies that have a complete end-to-end platform like AdviNow. Of course, there's many chatbots out there. A chatbot is a very simple thing. However, our system uniquely actually reads medical literature and studies and creates the relationship between patient condition, history, medications, and their current symptoms to correlate back to that most effective treatment. And because this is all engagement with the patient and given to the doctor to review, that is unique to AdviNow. So a digital check-in, not unique. We think ours is the best, of course, but the beautiful part about this is not the fact that it does e-registration. It's about the fact that we have that comprehensive interview that looks at the whole patient.
Great. Thank you for that.
I have a question for you, James. So, what's the current state of this, right? And I ask this as a from the perspective of a frustrated donor to cancer charities who's looked at the someday we'll have a cure for cancer magic bullet, and I've shared my background with you guys, right? So clearly I've traded that magic bullet concept into an idea for that there is no magic bullet, no silver bullet. There's a lot of lead bullets here that we think can have a more immediate impact. So is this something that's 20 years out into the future, 30 years someday, or are you guys launching soon? Is it active now? What's the current state of this?
Anthony, the amazing thing is we've actually been installed into 18 clinics today, where those patients are using us at home and in the clinics. And we have contracts for nearly 1,000 clinics to be rolled out over the next year. It's a very exciting time for us. In fact, just next week, we're launching a very large health system in the state of Illinois to be using the AdviNow platform. And we're starting with simple primary care and urgent care because that's kind of where access is limited, but ultimately the solution can be used in any type of care. And we're really looking forward to expanding it to that point.
I think it's important. I think it's really important to take that away, right? Which is not just what can we do someday, right? But what can we do today? What are we doing today? What can we do today that can actually have an immediate impact that we can start seeing, not in decades, not even in years, but in months, weeks, or even days, right? So, and again, this is one of the reasons why I'm so excited, why the Cancer Fund is so excited about AdviNow is because we think it has that kind of immediate potential for immediate impact on multiple levels. I won't get into I won't get so much into or I won't go into it at all today, but perhaps on another meeting, share what we think is sort of the ripple effect from this, because while James is focusing on the effect of or the impact of early diagnosis, there's a whole nother side of this around the cost of care that potentially transforms who actually has access to that. And when you start to see that ripple effect roll out, it potentially means that literally tens of millions and hundreds of millions of people could potentially benefit from this solution. And that just makes me even more excited about this.
I mean, the beauty is if you just look at the time on the slide here, 17 minutes average a doctor would take to review a patient's chart and then document their findings. When they adopt AdviNow, they only spend 2 minutes. So that 15 minutes savings, the doctor can see more patients. Or they spend more time with the patients that need it. And so this average of 3 minutes in the optimized provider consult, it's not because the provider's rushing in and out. It's because they have everything the patient needs. And now they're just answering questions for the patient to make them feel comfortable with the treatment selection that was made for them.
Even regardless of outcomes, the quality of care, right? And I know that this is something we went through with my father, and not that I've been a cancer patient, but I've been a patient for other issues. And how many people can tell you the color of their doctor's eyes, right? Maybe that's the way to think about this. I know that me personally and with my father, there was a very different experience in the care that we felt we got from doctors that actually spent the time to sit down, talk to you, look at you in the eyes, right, and have a conversation with you, versus those who were just head down in a folder or on a computer the entire time. And we know we know that from seeing AdvaNow in action, we know that not only does it have the potential other impacts that we're talking about, but actually improving that quality of care and the experience of that quality of care for the patients.
Couldn't agree more. I mean, the idea, if I fast forward time and just look at this 5 to 10 years from now, I don't see any patient going to the doctor without being interviewed by an AI ahead of time. The doctor it's impossible for the doctor to collect all of the information they need to be able to make that comprehensive, objective analysis in a real-time conversation with the patient. They have to look at them in the eye today, then they have to bury their head in the PC as they document everything. And that's just not something that the patient enjoys or the doctor. So these type of technologies have to go through and enable healthcare access to the world.
And I'm going to attempt to quote Dr. Kierkegaard in your interview with her, which was something to the effect of practicing at the top of their license.
Exactly.
Right? And certainly I don't think data entry is necessarily the top of their license. If you want more on that, check out the video.
I have the proverbial boatload of questions that you probably know. I don't. And I had warned Anne that, well, she knows me well enough. I've always got but have you thought of this? Or how would that be handled? So I have a whole lot of things, and I don't want to come across as, did you think of this? And have you, all of that. I agree that we need to, I think if this pandemic has shown us anything, it has gotten us, has kind of shaken us and said, look, there's a multiple ways of solving a problem. We thought the only way to work was to go into a building and do something. We found out that that's just not so. We can have telecommunication and all of that. So I believe very strongly that this is a great thing in its concept and going through. A couple of things, and I don't even know what order to put them in. When you start out, you said they're in clinics. You talk about the front door, the digital front door, smart check-in. Where is the front door? That's in a clinic?
It's our clinic website. It's the website. It's the website of a doctor's office.
Okay, so by then you have chosen the doctor, correct?
Yes. So from an AdvaNow standpoint, we sell our product to medical practices, and medical practices adopt it and make us the digital front door for them.
And when I would go to this, am I greeted by somebody digitally? I mean, let me give you an experience I just had. I've got, like an ancillary medical thing going on now, and they wanted me, my oncologist wanted me to see another specialist. And my primary gave me somebody, and I called that office, and I got the impression that the person who answered the phone, was chewing gum and filing her nails. That was my image. And she sounded, what she wanted from me, I called to just see if I could have an appointment, by the way. And what she wanted from me was 6 months of my medical records. And I said, I just want an appointment. I don't even know if I want this doctor yet. You know what I mean? But I had to provide 6 months of my Social Security, my health insurance, everything that you could think of that's private. And, and she didn't have answers. She only had what she had on a script. This is actually supporting your system here, by the way. I felt, which leads me to another one of my questions, is the privacy, the safeness of it, because I did not want to give her, this person who I, knew nothing about, all this information electronically. And I said, do you want all my cancer stuff? Well, she doesn't know, she had no idea. This was an endocrinologist's office I was calling over a different matter, and I didn't, so I went online, I checked them out, and the stars were, they're rude. And I went, yeah, she was rude. So I went to another place that somebody else recommended to me. So when you come into this, I would want to know that it is safe, that my information would be, and listen, we're all going to be hacked. It's inevitable. So I understand that. But how safe is it? And can I then update it? How do I transfer it? How do I go from this place? With my second cancer, it was a stage 3, and it was just devastating. It just took me years to get over it. But I used to say to people that I was a hypochondriac because I had so many doctors at that point. So I had my oncologist, and I had, this gal and that gal and this guy, and just all these different doctors. So how does that get to everybody? So those are some of my questions. How safe? Updating it, because I update my medicines every time I come in, potentially. Where is it stored? Also, is there a fee for this? Who pays that? Is it the doctors? Is it an insurance company? So let's just address that aspect of it, please.
Sure. So Advil Medical sells our product to doctor's offices. Doctor's offices pay us, and the patient never pays us a dime. The system will store all of the medical information that we receive into whatever electronic medical record the doctor's office is using. So AdviNow does not maintain your medical records. We are transitory for a patient privacy perspective, if you will. And all of the information will be documented in that. The beauty of AdviNow is that we are integrated into many different EMRs. So if we were to accept medical records from a different medical office that used a different healthcare record system, then we would be able to read it and pre-populate it, so you wouldn't have to answer all those questions all over again. And we would be able to utilize that information for you. We're not a repository. So I want to make sure that distinguishment is there. Everything inside it is treated with the same level of security that your bank protects your electronic money. So if you feel safe having your money in Wells Fargo or Bank of America or whoever you have, then you would feel safe having your information with AdviNow. Even though we don't store it, it's just moving through us when it goes into the medical records. And in fact, any electronic medical record system does have that same level of security. Not that it can never be hacked. I mean, I don't think anything is hack proof. However, it's extremely difficult to the point that it's rare. Did I forget a question? I think
No, in fact, I think you've answered a whole bunch of other ones because I thought, well, by the system that you have here with the 7 minutes, and that screen isn't up right now, but the 7 minutes, that's not going to cure my cancer in, total 25 minutes or whatever it works out. You're really taking that process of checking in and all this information and putting it in one spot.
But what we're all doing.
Yeah, so because I was going, and then because you say, and I could be wrong here, that then it recommends a doctor, or it recommends this and that. Well, that would make me a little nervous because in my mind, I'd say, well, they're going to recommend the guys and gals who buy this product. They're not going to recommend you know, the person I might choose who's got 5 stars, you know, because that person didn't buy it, especially at the beginning, because you know this is going to take a while to catch on. And over time, there's going to be a whole bunch of other people doing it also. Um, so, but that doesn't sound like that's what you're doing. You've already got a doctor that I would go to. That doctor would then input all this. So, what is the difference? And I'm leaving out right now, I'm just talking medical documents. What is the difference of my doctor sending documents over?
So we key off of whatever your conditions are. And so the beauty about AbbVie is that it is not just a questionnaire. It's not just a list of questions. If it was, we would have a questionnaire of about 1 million questions. Our system can ask 1 million different questions to the patient. Obviously, we're not going to send a questionnaire of 1 million patients. So we only want to ask the exact questions that a doctor would ask. The AbbVie system also is the one that orders the labs and recommends the measurements. And so we will also need to order only the labs that are medically necessary that a doctor would order. And then we would, all of this, the beauty about the system is that today you would go through, you would fill out probably 10 pages of paperwork and all of these questionnaires, you would hand them into the front desk. The front desk takes all your patient records, uploads them, and then you go in and you see the doctor. Then the doctor basically says, okay, yes, 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 go get these labs, go get these images, come back when it's done, right? So you've gone back and forth to that doctor probably 3 or 4 times before they're ready to give you a diagnosis and treatment plan. What AbbVie does is it pulls all of that information using the strength of the artificial intelligence. Now, just a little bit of background behind our AI. Our system actually reads medical journals. So if you can think about a computer reading every medical textbook that's available, every research paper that's been done, extracting the relationships between symptoms and illnesses and treatments and outcomes. No doctor could ever remember all those relationships. Our system is looking at those as it's deciding what labs to order, what questions to ask. Well, our system collects all of the information that really matters, such that when you are talking with the doctor, they can present to you a convincing plan, and with that relationship of trust, make sure that you are getting exactly what you need.
Is that the first thing I would do as a patient, I picked a doctor, I would fill out these forms, for lack of a better word, pardon my non-technology mouth. I would fill out these forms. This form would come back to me on my screen and say, print out, or here's your digital, go over to SonoraQuest or to LabCorp, get these preliminary things done. Would it make an appointment for me at that time too?
It would.
And it would say, let me rephrase that, the appointment for not only the doctor, but for the lab works? Okay. Okay, see, now that's making sense. So then I would do lab work. I have all of that in hand. I would have, the doctor would be able to certainly review all my records. It wouldn't have to be, well, Joan just didn't send them over, you know, it would all be there, correct?
They would all get populated into the electronic healthcare record your doctor uses. They would just open it up and look at it as if they wrote it themselves. From a confirmation of benefit standpoint, you're never going to be sent to anywhere until benefits are confirmed. Now, if benefits can't be confirmed, then you go into the current system, right? You'll talk to a front desk person and or the doctor and negotiate with the insurance company. All we do is electronically, we can communicate with the insurance company. We do it through the electronic healthcare records system that is used by the doctor's office. And we'll submit it for insurance approval. If it fails, then that sends it back into the manual process you have now.
Have you done clinical trials or just trials of this and then traced it over time to see that what you came up with, the AI came up with, was very close or the same or far apart from what the doctor?
Sure. So AdviNow, just for clarification, AdviNow is not a diagnostic tool approved by the FDA to diagnose illnesses. What AdviNow is a tool that will do a match and present to a doctor, and the doctor chooses. So we actually give them 5 illnesses to choose from with links to peer-reviewed literature that justifies those correlations. So the doctor then chooses. We have over a 99% selection in the top 5 illnesses that the doctor chooses. So yes, it's extremely accurate, but we are not a diagnostic tool. I do want to make sure that that is clear. Now, eventually we will be, but today we are just a clinical decision support tool.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much for answering my questions.
Can I jump in with one question here before we sort of start wrapping up?
Sure.
We've talked about this notion of the valley of death and how companies struggle with raising money. Can you just, you have a product, you're in the market, you have some people who are using this in clinic. Can you just talk about the funding challenges of the business, and how, people like the Cancer Fund could come and help you? What are you looking for funding for? How does it move you forward? Not sort of use of capitals, but just sort of in a general sense. Can you just talk about that funding challenge and what you're finding?
Sure. So the interesting thing is I come from outside healthcare. I've now been in healthcare for, going on 5 years. So I'm feeling like I'm closer to being part of the healthcare community. But I still have that 20 years of professional life outside of healthcare. And the one thing that is starkly different between other industries and healthcare is the rate of adoption. And now COVID has actually changed that, which is phenomenal. But the problem is that whenever you're trying to get a healthcare solution into the marketplace, nobody wants to be first. So they're very careful, and they'll put it in one clinic, and then they'll want to see year-over-year results. And it spreads out something that could be adopted in as quickly as a month to be adopted in years. And they go back it through the chief medical officer panel that they have, and it's a loop. So what does that mean to companies who are in the medical field as a startup? It means that we have to burn a lot more capital as we are going through all of these trials and surviving all of these things than companies that aren't in healthcare. And that means that innovation in healthcare gets starved. And as Anthony mentioned, great companies that actually have fantastic solutions end up going bankrupt, and their solutions aren't used, not because they're not fantastic solutions, but because the funding just ran out, patients ran out. So something the Cancer Fund actually absolutely helps with is making sure that we have enough money to get through all of the trials, because everyone takes time, and help us get to this ramp up period that AdviNow is finally getting to, which is very exciting for us, of where we will have more than enough money to cover our payroll and, turn into a profitable company.
Great. Thank you, James.
Well, with no further questions, James, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for answering the questions. I love this format of being able to have you here and answer questions. And just as if this were a screening committee meeting where we were all sitting in the room, this is the point that you would be escorted out of the room. So we're going to ask you to leave the room so the rest of us as a community can kind of discuss what we've learned here today. So again, thank you so much for your participation, and we'll get back with you with what we find out.
Thank you, Ann. Thank you, Anthony. I appreciate the time.
Well, you know what? This has been great. Went a little longer than I expected, but it's all part of the learning curve of doing this. This is really the first community engaged forum that we've done. And so I want to thank everybody, whether you were here on the webinar, whether you're participating on Facebook Live. If you're watching the replay on Facebook Live, please put replay in the comments and make sure you let us know where are you listening in from and how are you impacted by cancer. And if you have any questions, go back and rewatch any of the videos. And I know for me, sometimes I need to marinate on things before I make any kind of decision. So if you need some time for feedback, then just send me a message with what is your thought about whether this is a good investment for the Cancer Fund to financially support. And I just want to thank everybody so much for participating today in this. It's been very exciting. It's been fun. And next up, we're beginning to create the discussion about recurrence, which is absolutely the word that all of us as patients and family members and caregivers despise. And so I want to thank everybody's participation. James isn't here, but everybody in the community that joined us today. And I just want to thank everyone for your time. We appreciate the fact that you stuck with us, and be looking for information about recurrence. That's our next subject. So thank you very much.